Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing some smoking. We're going to be smoking some cheeses and we're going to be making some smoked meat sticks. We're going to be doing this as part of our gift baskets for Christmas. We've been doing this for a few years now. It's become kind of a tradition for us. And it's kind of been fun. Family really likes it. It's been very popular. So that today we're going to show you how we do that. Let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the smoked cheese. We got sharp cheddar and Monterey Jack. You can really use any cheese you want. These are just the two we buy from the store. It's more universally liked and it's easier to get a lot of people, make a lot of people happy without trying to go too crazy. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take it out of the plastic and we'll set it on the rack, and then we're gonna bring it out to our smoker. Now we have the cheese unwrapped. A couple things to note when you are smoking cheeses. It's a really simple process, which blows me away on why it's so expensive to buy from the store. The only couple things you need to know is what's your soft cheeses and your hard cheeses. Hard cheeses typically take longer to smoke because it's harder for the smoke to penetrate than the soft cheeses. So you kind of want to adjust your time for them to accompany for both. The other thing is smoking, you're doing a cold smoke, which the difference between a hot and a cold smoke is a hot smoke usually uses more embers and more direct heating, kind of like if you're doing a brisket, where cold smoke is you're getting a slight char going, but you're not letting it get any flame. And you want to keep it as far away from the heat as possible. It's just the smoke that's hitting it. So that way the cheese doesn't melt, and it's more just absorbing that flavor. And you can use the same process if you're trying to infuse other things with smoke, like salts or herbs. Like a couple years ago, we did tomato sauce, and we used this cold smoke to infuse the tomatoes with the smoke before blending it up for that flavor. So let's get out to the smoker, and we'll show you what's next. So this is my homemade smokehouse. I made it out of using a crate that was kind of at my work. Not the most visually appealing, but it gets the job done. It holds most of the smoke in. There's enough ventilation up top. Nothing's escaping from the bottom, which is kind of what you want. You want the smoke to rise. So I just got this cleaned up earlier this week for the holiday season. And I have the smoker already started. So what you're gonna see is kind of what I got inspiration from my grandpa, is a hot plate with a bowl on top, and the bowl has a couple wood blocks that I soaked with some pellets. The idea is the wood blocks will smoke slow and the pellets kind of get it going. When you do this type of thing, you got to play with it to get the ratios correct, because you don't want it to burn too quick because that'll produce too much heat, but you don't want to burn too slow where it's not going to create enough smoke. And where I have it right now is perfect. This amount right here should easily burn for 4 hours. So that's the idea, is trying to get a nice, slow, but consistent smoke. So now, where I said the denser cheeses, you want on the bottom rack, because they're going to get more smoke from it. I'm kind of placing it so it's close to the heat, but not directly. I'm going to try to keep it away from the center funnel. And the Monterey Jack's going to go one rack higher, so that way those will be done about the same time. It works really well, as you can tell. Then close up, and I will come here every couple hours to check to make sure nothing doesn't start burning too quick or doesn't snuff itself out. And so while this is going, I'm going to get the meat prepared, and kind of want to keep this thing in here for about 6 hours. You will start to notice a color change on it. You will start to see like a brown hue start to appear around the cheese. If your cheese starts to get too soft, like it starts to melt, reduce the heat. Try to add more wet wood on top to keep it so it's just cooler and more smoky. If not a lot of smoke's appearing, I add more pellets to kind of increase the flow and airflow. You don't want to be, kind of got to balance it around until you get a ratio that's perfect. But this should keep it cold enough so it doesn't melt, but definitely infuses that flavor. So we'll come back in a couple hours and check, and I'll show you the progress on it. So before we get started working on the meat sticks, a couple things you're going to definitely need. One is the meat grinder. We have a KitchenAid one that we like to use, but you can buy other electric ones from Cabela's, or you can buy a hand one. They all work the same. Actually, for the first couple years, we did use a hand grinder, and it's tedious, but it does get the job done. The next thing you're gonna need is collagen casings. This is the 17 millimeter, which is what I like. It fits the attachment that came with this guy. But they make smaller ones, they make slightly larger, is kind of what you're looking for. This is just perfect snack stick sizing for us. And the other thing, the most important one, is curing salt. Now, you definitely can't use just normal salt, because this has a couple extra ingredients in it that helps keep and preserve the meat longer. I'm not saying that my stuff will be shelf stable, but it definitely will help make it last as part of the process. Another thing you're gonna need is pink curing salt. You gotta make sure it's actual curing salt, not table salt or like any other type. It has to be curing salt because this is made specifically to cure meats, especially like meat sticks, sausages, jerkies. You need this stuff. You don't need a lot, but it does help preserve and keep the meat fresh. So that's definitely got to have that. So now the final thing, which is always optional and kind of to your liking, is your seasonings. We're going to do 2 types of flavors of meat sticks this year. The first one, I'm going to use the brine that we got from the cowboy candy that we made in a few videos back. We're going to use this part of the flavor, and I'm going to use the Spiceology habanero honey mix. Love this stuff, and it's trying to do a nice sweet and spicy flavor for the that meat stick. The other one we're going to do, I'm going to lean towards on the smokier end of things. I'm going to use the Spiceology Cowboy Crust, which is also on the little smokier side. And I'm going to use this type of thing called Urfa Beaver Flakes. Let's see if I can. This one I kind of found by accident, and I wasn't sure how to use it because it's supposed to have like a smoky, tobacco-y type taste to it, but it's just really smoky and full of flavor. Usually I mix this with the cowboy crust and add a little bit of honey to the mix, and it's so far has been the favorite jerky flavor and favorite meat stick flavor that we've made the last few years. So that's been the consistent one we've been making. Once you get all your stuff together, now time to get the meat prepped. So the meat we're going to be using to get this going is I'm grabbing some pork shoulder that I got from the store. What you're kind of looking for when you're doing a meat stick is you kind of want like a 20% fat ratio, 20-30%, because to help keep it moist and not too dry and hard as a rock. I like using pork shoulder. It's usually because what's comes on sale. Normally, I mix it with a little bit of beef. I grab some whatever cheap steak I can find at the store as well and throw it in there to kind of add some more texture to it. But beef's been very expensive here, so we're doing straight pork. And if you don't have a very enough fat on it, one thing you can do to supplement the extra fat is buy some bacon or some pork belly and add that to your mix as well, because the higher fat ratio of it will keep it well rounded. You want to make sure your pork is cold. Kind of want, if you're going to think you're going to take a little while, what you do is throw it in the freezer for a few minutes, make sure it's really chilled, because you don't want this sitting at room temperature for very long. So we're going to crack this open and we're going to start throwing through the meat grinder. A couple other things to keep note is when you're doing this, you don't want to go for the ultra fine setting on your meat grinder, but the very small holes, especially if you're doing a manual. That's going to be way too hard on the machine. About the standard size grate that it puts holes in here is what is perfect, because you don't want too fine. Now, if you're doing jerky, you don't want any fat, and you want it as fine as possible if you're doing a jerky gun. Fat is what's going to make it go rancid if you use jerky, so kind of the opposite. With meat sticks, you are more fat's fine, but with jerky, not at all. So let's get this cut up and we'll start feeding it through the machine.
Okay, this is gonna probably get a little loud for you guys.
Okay, so what you do is kind of feed it through. And all your meat grinders should come with the safety stick. Never jam your fingers directly in there. And don't want to force it, you kind of just want to take it easy. Excuse me. Here, I will chop like that. Just be wary of my elbow. So this pork shoulder does have a bone in it. I have used pork tenderloin before, which is boneless, which kind of speeds up the process, but this was just such a good deal. I'm willing to fight around a bone for this. Plus, we can save the bone and use it for broth. Okay, so we just got done with one of the pork shoulders, so we turned this into this and this. So we got quite a bit of meat out of it. We got one more left to go, and then we're going to put it in the fridge, let it cool back down, so then we're going to work with it again.
And about how much was that pork shoulder? Like 8 pounds about?
8, 9 pounds, something.
Yeah, so get a lot of meat. All right, we'll see you when we're all done with this next one.
Now we got all the meat ground up. Now we're going to add our cure and our seasoning. So on the directions of your cure, it should tell you the ratio of how much to add. This one says 1 teaspoon per 5 pounds of meat. And as earlier, these are about 8, 9 pounds. So we're just gonna add 2 teaspoons to it, which does not seem like a lot, but you really don't need that much.
So are we doing 1 in each bowl then?
2 teaspoons.
To each bowl?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 teaspoons or 4 total, I guess. 1 and 2, and the other one and 2. And if you actually do a little too much, not the end of the world. Like I said, it's just salt. Do with a little extra. Okay, so now we're gonna have the seasoning. I got this cutting board that turns into a container. We're gonna pour this guy in here because this bowl does not have a lid for it. So this one I'm going to do is I'm going to use our cowboy candy brine and our habanero honey mix. Now, because this brine is a liquid, I'm not going to add the whole jar. I'm just going to add probably about that much to it. Just enough to get everything well coated, so about that much.
There's an ounce line by your finger.
There's a what?
Ounce line by your finger.
Yeah. So, yes. About 3-4 ounces. If you want it stronger, I would add more of like powder variants. You don't want to do too much liquid because you don't want the meat stick dripping. Now I'm gonna add the habanero honey. Probably gonna add a third of this container. So I really want that flavor. Then you take it and you give it a good solid mix. Get all that seasoning in there. Whew. Smell the cowboy candy.
And for anyone that maybe hasn't made the cowboy candy and wants to in the future, it is really sticky brine because of the sugar in it. So I recommend keep a wet rag on hand if it drips anywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be a sweet and spicy. But when we had the cowboy, it wasn't crazy spicy when we tried it. It was more of the sweet end. It was very surprising. And the vinegar is going to help break down the meat from the brine as well. Okay. I'm going to pop this down to next level. This type of container is not necessary, but I just absolutely love it. Got out of one of our Sportsman stores. And it's so good and multifunctional. So now you want to keep a lid on it, and we're going to put it into the fridge. And now this next one we're going to do is going to be the Cowboy Crust from Spiceology and the Earth for Beaver Flakes. Smells really good. Do a nice little coating. Don't be afraid to go crazy on the spices, because if you really, really want to taste, you need to add a lot. Can I get some garlic powder, actually? I'm going to add a little extra flavor. I'm going to throw some garlic in here.
Powder or granules?
Granules.
What granules?
Yeah.
This is. I think we have another big thing if you can do that.
No, that's perfect.
It's all.
Just can't go wrong with garlic. Garlic's such a safe flavor. And there we go. And just make sure it's well mixed together so that curing salt is everywhere. Cold. One thing I like about the earth rub beaver flakes is that they're very visually prominent, so it gives you a good idea how well you're mixing in it. You can see all those, I don't know if you see on the camera, all these little thick black specks. So yeah, I can see where the part of the meat that got the seasoning and the parts that didn't. And just keep working it. There you go. Once it's all mixed well, put the cap on, and we're gonna come back to this in 24 hours and put it in the casings.
Yep, and we'll be putting this in our fridge for the 24 hours.
That too, don't leave it on your shelf. Been a couple hours, we're checking on it right now. You can see this. I'm gonna put in another cheese. Wife's side, we're gonna smoke some cream cheeses in here as well. And you can see here on the bottom, we got a little bit of charcoal going, but not a lot. A lot of the pellets have burned out. So what we're going to do is a nice little fix. So, I'm gonna try this one hand. Pick this up here, pour into this pan right here. So those are more aerated. I'm going to take some wood shavings. Now they're really get that smoke going. Take some more pellets. Throw it right there. And the wood I'm using is apple wood. I like that smoky flavor, so my go-to. I'm just gonna add some more to that. So now I got smoke coming from this pan and this one. That way it could be more smoke as opposed to coming from a centered area. But I'm gonna take some more wood chips and fill that one up higher. I'm not gonna add too many, not wood chips, pellets. I'm gonna add some more pellets and add into the back one. I'm gonna leave this one, this is my dump space. Not going to do too many wood chunks themselves because that can create too much heat. And we can kind of take a look at the cheese. No color developed yet, so it's going to be quite a few minutes. It's only been like an hour and a half. So we'll come back to this in a little bit with another update. Okay, coming out at the 4-hour mark to check on the cheese. See, it's smoking really good, which is what we want. Let's go take a look. Oof-da. Okay. You can see this bucket is running pretty good. It's a little bit harder than I want, but it's producing a lot of smoke, so it's pretty good. It should be not affecting the cheese at all. And you can see we're starting to get a little color. You see the difference? So I'm flipping these over. So the smoke can get equally on both sides. There, that's so we get that nice yellow color. Not done yet. I'm going to swap that over to down here, probably empty about half of that, and add more pellets to it so we can keep going. Okay, we'll come back out here in a few more hours. Okay, so the cheese is done. It took a couple hours longer than anticipated, mostly because I really wanted the cream cheese to get all the time it needed to smoke. But as you can see, the color change of it, how it's a lot darker. How this was white, now it's an orange color. That's from the smoking process. Another thing you'll notice, it's a little oily. That's just the oils from the cheese coming out. So all we have left to do is wrap it in plastic wrap or vacuum seal it and let it sit for 1 to 2 weeks. Because if you just break into this now, the smoky flavor has a chance to get to the bottom. So it'll be very strong on the outside, but not as flavorful in the middle. So you kind of want to keep it sealed, like I said, either in vacuum sealing or plastic wrap, so that the flavor has a chance to get settled into the middle of the center of the cheese as well. So we're going to do this right now. And then tomorrow we're going to get to finish up the meat sticks. Okay, everyone, it's been 24 hours and our meat has been setting from the fridge. So now we're going to put into the casing. So now we're going to put the meat into the casings. A couple big things to note is make sure you have the right nozzle size. Not all meat grinders come with the same size of casings you find at the store, so you might have to buy a third-party one. Another thing to note is what type of casings you get. This type of casing I have is a dry casing. This one you do not want to get wet before you put it onto the funnel. Some of them you do want to soak, so just read the directions ahead of time. If this type of stuff gets wet, it sticks to each other and it will just fall apart. So very important, you read and check what type of casings you're buying before you start loading and getting everything going. So first thing we're gonna do is try to funnel this ever so carefully onto here. And you kind of work your way like that. This whole thing is not going to fit on here just because of the size. And very important, you make sure the nozzle is dry as well if you're doing a dry casing on as well, because the moisture, if you just washed it, will get it's really stuck and start getting it to tear. There you go. And once this is full, give yourself some space. You tear it, twist and tie. There we go. Now, Shiloh's going to help load the meat. I'm going to help guide this. You don't want it to be filled too fast or too thin. You want to try to keep it a consistent flow. I'll show you what we're looking for.
Ready?
Yep.
How many clicks over?
Where it feels right. Another thing to let you guys know, when we bought this nozzle, it was ever so slightly too small for the machine. And we didn't have one that fit the casings we already bought, so we're just, you see a little leak out the front, that's just because it's not sitting in there all the way. Okay, and once you're almost done filling up the casing, when you have about just a little bit left, just go ahead and pull that part off, pull it down, and tie it off. Like so. And this is what the first one looks like. Now, for how thick you want to do it, you want it so that it's still firm to pinch, but not to the point where it's like a lot of the stain. You don't want it to be like super tight, because then you risk tearing it when it's coming off. But you don't want it super loose where it's just gonna slush around. When people take a bite, it's just gonna be one big bite of casing. So we're gonna put this in the fridge and we're gonna get the rest of this meat loaded up. We'll see you when we're done. We just finished stuffing all the casings. This is about what 16 pounds worth of meat gets you. We'd ended up deciding to do 2 different casings for each of the meats. The thinner one, we did the smoky fiber flake recipe, and this one is the one we use the cowboy candy brine in. Figured it'd be easier to differentiate between the two, especially when it comes to when we're having to organize and sort it out. Now we're going to take it to the smokehouse and get it going. So for the thinner ones, I'm going to layer them up top. I got these little hooks up here because when I originally built this, I intended to have these racks come out, but I just didn't have the time to actually build them like that. And you want to make sure there's enough spacing so that the smoke can get the sides. You preferably don't want them touching each other. And I'm going to do the thicker sticks on the bottom. That way they get more smoke. Length of time to smoke, I'm going to probably smoke these for 24 to 36 hours. I want them to really get that smoke infused flavor. And this is a cold smoke, so it is a slower process. It's a marathon, not a race when you do this type of sausage. That's okay. So I'll see you guys in a little bit to check on these. Okay, so it's been about 30 hours. These things have been sitting in the cold smoker the whole time. As you can tell, the color has greatly changed. These were the Biber flakes. As you can see, it's way darker and more amber, and actually a lot softer. And this one is the Cowboy Crust Brine one. So now that these are been smoking for a long time, we have one last step to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the oven for about 200 degrees to help cook and dry them out just a little bit longer, because it is a cold smoke. The smoke does dry, helps extract moisture, but it's not going to give it the firm little firm bites that we like. So what we do is we take a set of kitchen shears in a frying pan and kind of estimate a size, cut it. Look at that beautiful color. Let me see. But this is why we're cooking it, because we want to make sure it's no raw. Don't want to risk anyone getting sick. But I kind of just cut these in half, line them. They don't have to fit the pan perfectly. The pan is just to make sure they don't fall into the stove. And just cut. Okay, now we got them kind of lined up on the board, trying to minimize overlap. And we're going to put them in the oven until they become firm, so they don't have as much give or as soft. So once they become firm is when we take it out, because like I said, we're mostly trying to cook and dehydrate at the same time. So like I said, the temperature we're looking for is between about 200 and 250. We don't want to really just cook them. Like I said, it's more of a slow process trying to dehydrate and dry at the same time. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So this is probably gonna take me all night to do. So I'll come back and see you in the morning when this is all done. Okay, everyone, we just finished getting these all cooked and dried out in the oven. As you can see here, I'm gonna cut that part off. Has that nice color. That color is from the smoke and the curing salt, but they're 100% ready to eat and they're good to go for Christmas gifts. What we're gonna do off camera is pack these in our vacuum seal bags and keep them in the freezer until we're ready to hand them out. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Thanks for watching.